I love sharing stories.
The world needs people to tell stories.
I'm definitely a storyteller.
We're storytellers.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Discovery Education Junior NBA All-Star Virtual Field Trip. My name is Roz Goldonwoode, and we're gonna celebrate the 2020 All-Star Game being in Chicago. And we're gonna meet the people who tell the stories of professional basketball every day, like me. My job is as a sports broadcaster or a basketball analyst. So if you're watching the basketball games, sometimes when I'm in the reporter role, I'm the one at the end of the games interviewing your favorite player and asking him or her what inspired their effort. Or maybe I'm a host or an analyst and I'm moving the conversation along, breaking down the hows and the whys of the game. But at the core of everything that I do, I'm telling you a story. I'm trying to bring you closer to the athletes and not only know them as players, but as people too. Good stories make you feel something. Sometimes good stories make you feel like you relate to the subject. And sometimes you don't relate at all. Maybe sometimes the story is awe-inspiring, or it's touching, or it's tragic. It makes you feel sad, or someone overcame some great obstacle, or achieved something excellent. My own story started in Queens. My mom gave me a basketball at the age of 4, and I fell in love with the game. Growing up in Queens, I lived right across the street from a park, and I spent a lot of time there. So for me, like going to the park and earning my stripes and earning respect from the other kids there was a huge rite of passage. I oftentimes was the only girl at the park too, a whole bunch of boys. So sometimes it was nerve-wracking calling next. And then I was so good that I didn't even have to call next. People were trying to get me on their team. So through basketball, I got a lot of confidence. And I did that through hard work and just showing up each day and not being afraid. So that's where I wrote my first chapter. The first storyteller we're gonna meet is Luka. His story started in Serbia and brought him all the way to Chicago.
I was born in Belgrade to a theater family. My dad was a director and my mom was a costume designer. And we moved to the US when I was 3 years old. So I always grew up around people doing things a little bit differently, around creative parents. You know, my mom was always drawing things around the house and going to thrift stores to make costumes. My dad was always kind of had his nose in a book somewhere figuring out what the next play was gonna be. For me, I knew that I liked to work with people, I liked to write, and I liked to create and make stuff. I went to school at Valparaiso University in Indiana. I studied public relations and business administration. I knew business always interested me, but not from the sense of dollars and cents and numbers, but in the sense of how to tell stories within the business world. So that's how my career started. That's what college was for me. It was a matter of just getting experiences, seeing what you like to do. And you know, I think some of the people that I think are happiest in their roles today are people who just tried different things. So as the director of content at the Chicago Bulls, I'm responsible and my team is responsible for anything that's on the internet related to the Bulls. Whether you see articles, videos, photos, social media, we're always trying to do content that hasn't been done before and that people haven't seen before. For instance, last season, we took a play where Lauri Markkanen had a huge dunk, one of the biggest dunks of the year, and we worked with an artist locally here to break his dunk down into individual frames, which we then printed out on pieces of paper. We then brought that paper to a game, and we grabbed hundreds of fans, and we had them each draw using crayons or markers or colored pencils over every single individual frame. We then took all those drawings, we put them back together into one cohesive video, and we put it out. That was something that we're very proud of. It was a project that took a ton of time for what ended up being a 22-second video, but it was worth the effort because we knew we were giving people something different. Critical thinking is the fun part of what we do. Critical thinking is, you know, how can we do something differently? How can we create something that people haven't seen before, and what's the way of doing that? An idea is just an idea until you actually make it happen. Critical thinking is that step between an idea becoming a reality. So that's not coming from one person or one team, it's coming from all of us. We all sit in a room and we come up with ideas and we throw stuff at the wall. regardless of where you come from, like what your background is, you have something to contribute. And for us, I think that's what sets good content apart. Sometimes an idea makes you very nervous, but it works. So a couple of years ago, we said, do we think people would be interested in something that's like way different than what you'd usually find a sports team doing? And we filmed a murder mystery on Snapchat. The night before we filmed this murder mystery, I couldn't sleep, and it made me really nervous, but I knew that we had put the right work in. I knew we believed in it. We all thought it was funny. We all thought it was different, and the response was bigger than we could have ever imagined. We immediately saw just a flood of people, even on other platforms, tweeting us, saying like, I've never seen this before, did you guys watch the Bulls Snapchat? It was crazy. Like, we started getting calls from other teams asking how we pulled it off, and the secret sauce was that we just came up with something a little bit different, and we believed in it, and we put everything into it, and it worked out. It's wild how much our industry is constantly changing. Vine was really big for us a couple of years ago. I thought we were one of the top teams on Vine, and then Vine completely shuts down and just doesn't even exist anymore. TikTok went from something that wasn't even a consideration last year to something that's like a major part of our strategy moving forward. Our industry didn't even exist when I was in school. Like digital marketing, social media, that wasn't a job when I was going to college. So in a matter of 10 years, everything has changed, completely. So if that's what you do in your career, you learn really quickly that you can't control how people react to what you put out. What you can control is how proud you are of it, whether you think it's worth it, whether you can stand behind it. The scary part of having millions of followers is that if you put out something bad or something that misses the mark, you're gonna hear about it. So what you can do is make sure whatever you do, you're proud of. Creating things and putting them out into the world is what storytelling is all about. And everybody does it in their own way, and everybody does it in a different way. But the important thing is that you're doing it in a way that makes sense and is true to you.
So I started off playing a lot of sports, but eventually I realized that I really loved basketball. And with the hard work I was putting in, I was starting to get really good at it. And eventually I was starting to get recruited by colleges. And I had a number of offers. But for me, it was not only a focus on basketball, it was also a focus on academics. And so I chose to go to Stanford University because at the time it was a top 5 academic institution, top 5 women's basketball program, and I could get the best of both worlds. I got my bachelor's degree in communication, and then I continued on to get my master's degree in sociology of business. Basketball became this great vehicle in my life. It gave me the chance to go to college for free on a scholarship. It gave me the chance to see the world. I've traveled through many continents playing the game of basketball. And now as an adult, basketball keeps giving to me. And every day I show up to work and I'm on the basketball court talking about the game, I feel excited and passionate and inspired. And in that way, basketball is like the gift that keeps on giving. Next, we're gonna meet Ryan. Basketball was his vehicle too, and he really walks the walk when it comes to teamwork.
We've been in the gym. Yeah, we've been in the gym.
So my story begins in a town northeast of Philadelphia called Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Grew up in a very big family, had 5 siblings. Both my parents love sports. My dad played football at Villanova, so growing up I was always about sports, but my parents always made sure that I did my schoolwork before I was able to go work on my game. And I kind of progressed, went to college at Villanova as well, and then made my way through the G League, the Developmental League, and now I'm here in the NBA playing for the Chicago Bulls and couldn't be happier. My favorite subjects growing up, I feel like I really liked math. My sister was an English teacher, so she probably won't like that I answered math, but yeah, I always felt that I was good with numbers and always was intrigued by anything that involved numbers. Playing basketball, clearly a numbers game, and I feel like I have a better understanding of what analytics are, where it comes from, having liked math growing up as a kid. So in college at Villanova University, I studied liberal arts. I was a communications minor, and I'm still one class away from an econ minor, so I have to go back and finish that up. So when Villanova won the national championship in 2016, I made the game-winning pass. It was after a crazy shot by the North Carolina player. So my first mindset was that I'm going to hit the best shot in college basketball history. But my teammates needed me to make the right play and the right decision. So they inbounded me the ball, and then I was dribbling up the court. There were 75,000 people in the football stadium where the basketball court was, and I heard my teammates say Arch, 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 which is my nickname, and I passed him the ball, trusting him. We always talk about attitude at Villanova and having a positive attitude and having a positive outlook on everything. So I trusted my teammate. We had great chemistry, and he made the shot. The crowd went wild, and it was all celebration. And it was something that I grew up always being on team, putting the team first before yourself, and always wanting to see the success of the team rather than the success of yourself. So it makes me feel great knowing when I pass the ball to someone else and they're able to knock down a shot. And I think it also sends a message to your other teammates and to the other team about how much you trust them. But I feel like if people did that and people just focused on each other, I think that they'll be successful in the end. So for any kid who's watching this, always dream big, always work hard, and always keep a positive attitude. I wear an attitude bracelet, so you can kind of see it right there. Zoom in on that attitude bracelet. It just reminds me of my days at Villanova, my days as a little kid, where I started out with a negative attitude, and I always was in a bad mood whenever we lost. I was a sore loser, but you can only control what happens to you next. You can't control what happened to you in the past. So I think if you respond to any situation, whether you don't do well on the test, whether you lose a game, and you say, you know what, I'm going to work harder, I'm going to study more, I think that it's just the way to look at life is have a positive attitude and control what you can control in the future. So the All-Star Game is going to be here in Chicago this year, and I think that's such a huge thing for the Chicago Bulls, the city of Chicago, and my teammates as well. But I just think that it's a big thing for the city. I know Chicago is such a basketball-driven city. They love their hoops so much. To be able to have some of the best athletes in the world here in Chicago playing at the United Center, it's going to be historic, and people are going to really, really love it. So hopefully it ends up being a big weekend for the city of Chicago and the Chicago Bulls as well. Being a part of the NBA is something special. I haven't really stepped back to think about how special it is and to be a part of their ongoing journey and their ongoing story that they're telling of where the game was 30 years ago to where it is now to where it's going to be 20 years from now. So just to be a small chapter, or even a page or two in their book that they're writing is pretty spectacular, and something that I'll think back and look back on when I'm done playing, hopefully a while from now, and reflect on how good it was and how positive it was to be a part of the NBA.
While I was at Stanford, I was hooping, but I was always thinking about my life after basketball. So I was taking classes, but I was also teaching a public speaking course through the engineering department. I was working as a production assistant at the school radio station. In the summertime, I took internships at different businesses, and I took on mentorships and had the opportunity to shadow a lot of people and learn from experts in the fields that I cared about. Broadcasting can be challenging because it's a very competitive field. It's hard to get into, it's hard to differentiate yourself, and in the beginning, you don't make a lot of money, and nobody even told me. So when I was starting off, I actually had to take a full-time job and then try to pursue broadcasting on the side and hope that it would build up slowly. So I started by creating my own show that I did, filmed it out of my bedroom about women's college basketball, and I put it on the internet. And then from there, I was able to develop an audience because I stayed consistent and I kept putting the show out each week, and people started to notice. And eventually there was a network that said, hey, this is cool. Can you do this for us? And I started to build my resume. I covered men's and women's college basketball. I had the great chance to cover the WNBA, the NBA G League, and the NBA itself. I went from the Liberty to the Santa Cruz Warriors to the championship Golden State Warriors. And I even had the chance to go to Rio, Brazil and work the 2016 Olympics and cover men's basketball. It was one of the highlights of my career. And now today, I cover the entire NBA. The NBA has so many amazing stories to tell. Next, we're gonna meet John, who's lucky enough to tell them all. Past, present, and future.
Growing up as a passionate Bulls fan, attending a lot of games at Chicago Stadium and watching my heroes play there, I always knew that one day I would love to work in professional sports, especially basketball, but never in my wildest dreams did I think I could. Fortunately, I love writing, I love history, and I contacted a sports magazine and asked to see if there was any internship opportunities. And there wasn't, but I still got my foot in the door and met with them. And one thing led to another, and I was able to intern at the magazine. And eventually, that persistence, not accepting no as an answer, led me to the MBA. And I'm in my 24th year. I'm basically a content creator and a content manager. And for content creator, that means I'll write stories for the website, I'll post factoids on our social media handles, especially our NBA history handle, which I oversee. And also, as one of the league historians, I get to interview former players. And for me, I have the best of both worlds because I get to focus on today's game and today's players, but also work with my other heroes, the former players who have paved the way for today's generation. We have a tremendous video archive and a tremendous photo archive. We have content dating back to the league's very first game and very first season, all the way through present day in the league's 74th season. One of the most impactful stories in the league history is what happened in 1950 and 51 when the NBA broke the color barrier, and Chuck Cooper, the first African-American player drafted by the Boston Celtics, Earl Lloyd, the first African-American to play in the NBA, Nat Sweetwater Clifton, the first to sign a contract in the NBA. These men traveled a hard road to get to that point, and for us, it's important to tell those stories and also how those individual players impacted the players back then and also future generations as well. Every April, the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame welcomes a new class of inductees. One of the great aspects of my job is I personally get to help those inductees with their Hall of Fame speeches. We work on an outline, we talk about their life story, and then there's a couple different drafts that go back and forth. And for me, it's a great honor to be able to say that I helped a Hall of Famer with their induction speech, and that's something that those speeches live on forever. One of my main responsibilities for All-Star 2020 in Chicago is editing the NBA All-Star Game program. I help on other fronts in terms of in-game presentation and also artwork that is shown throughout the city of Chicago, factoids about players. So I have my hand in a little bit of everything for the creative for NBA All-Star. And for me, being from Chicago, it's a personal thrill because I vividly remember the last All-Star game in 1988 in Chicago, and now I get to be a participant from a league perspective, and I can't wait. And that's what's exciting about the NBA is its ability to move forward and its ability to awe and inspire a generation of fans today and beyond.
A cool part of my job is I get to be around super elite, excellent athletes. And sure, they're very skilled, but what is it that actually captivates us? What is it about that athlete that makes you feel connected, that makes you care? That's what I'm trying to get out through storytelling. And perhaps they are a really great shooter on the basketball court, but maybe she's also a working mother who brings her daughter or her children to the locker room with her. Or maybe he's just like you and I and gets nervous before games and has all these kooky and weird superstitions that he does, and I tell you about them. I think the main thing is we make these athletes human. Even though they're so great in their skill, they're just like you and me. Images are another way to capture the stories behind the athletes, and that's what Michelle does every single day.
I tell a story visually. Growing up, I had a love for sports. I tried to play basketball and various other sports, and I was just not the most athletic of children. I was never the MVP on a team. One of my softball coaches said, "Oh, you are our most injured player on the team." It's fine. So I decided to try and still be involved with sports growing up, and took a different approach. So if I ever went to a game as a kid, whether I was sitting up in the nosebleeds in the 300s of an arena, I would try and take photos of things that I saw on the court with my own little camera. So hobbies and things that you enjoy doing now might turn into a career later, even though you might not realize it. I didn't have it all click until I was probably applying to college. After high school, I started working on my undergraduate degree at NYIT, and I had gotten my degree in graphic design and photography. What I do is I'll take photos of the athletes that you see playing the game on court, from games to events to portraits. One of my favorite things to do is to capture the essence of that athlete when you see them off with their mother or father, or seeing their child off on the sidelines. You see that human interaction and them as a person, not just them as an athlete. Part of the reason why I love the All-Star Weekend is because you have all of these top-level NBA players that train all year long and are very focused in on game nights and game days. Then they get there and it's just the pure love of the game all over again. They're like kids having fun playing basketball. One of the things working in sports, there's not a redo. So if you miss certain things, then it's happened. You can't go back and have that big moment that you just saw, whether it be the big winning 3-point or the moment where the player met the child off the side of the court. You can't get those moments back, so you have to kind of be prepared and on your feet and ready to go at a moment's notice with what's happening around you. But you also have to pay attention. There's moments where players walk off and they give their sneakers to somebody just like you that might be on the sidelines, or they meet a celebrity that might be sitting there and to say hello. So that might be happening while people are warming up. You watch things a little bit differently than when you are at home. And then even when you're at home and watching, there's still a little bit in the back of your head going, oh, well, this would be going on right about now if I was there working. I would be doing this X, Y, and Z right about now, or I would be probably shooting that moment this way. That would go off in my head sometimes. I just wanted to let you all know that no matter what anybody might say to you, even if you might not be the one with the best jump shot or the most athletically able, that if you have a love and passion for sports, that you can still be involved. You just have to find your little niche and go for it.
Broadcasting is a very difficult field to get into, and at one point I was at a crossroads, like, should I continue to try and do this, because I was having a hard time finding work and making money. But it was my dream, and I didn't want to give up on my dream, and I decided to stay persistent. I was playing on the basketball team, and we made it to 3 Final Fours, and that means we got to be on TV on a national broadcast. And one of the broadcasters was Doris Burke, who is one of the pioneers of basketball broadcasts. And my teammates made fun of me, but I would come to the Final Four with my resume. So I saw Doris. I went up to her. I said, I look up to you so much. You're awesome. Can I pick your brain? Can I shadow you? Can I join you when you go to a game and do a broadcast? And Doris said yes. She was one of the first people to open up the door for me. And to this day, as a professional, I think about the lessons that Doris taught me when she took me as a college student to the NBA Finals, and I got to watch how she prepared, how she carried herself, how she developed rapport with the players and the coaches. And to this day, I keep that in mind, those lessons. Being persistent is an important part of building a career path. Mike was already out of college when he decided that he wanted to change careers. Let's find out how he was able to make that happen.
So growing up, I was always interested in law enforcement. That led me to want to study that in college. Always had an interest in basketball as well, but it was more of just a hobby than a career. So I enrolled at Penn State, studied security and risk analysis, which is the study of, how people might commit a crime using a computer or using the internet. As I went through my studies, I quickly realized that law enforcement might not be the career for me. You're dealing with, some not so nice individuals, so, I wanted to make a career change. So after college, I, looked up jobs at the NBA. I knew I wanted to work here, but, the right role for me wasn't posted at that time. There were 2, 3, 4 jobs that, I had to get the call that said I didn't get it. Right after those calls, you're pretty bummed out. But, eventually the right position popped up for me, and it was a good fit, and I've been here for 8 seasons now. So on this field trip, you're meeting a lot of storytellers at the NBA. It's my job to make sure that they are able to tell those stories to you in the most efficient way possible. And that might be through social media, that might be through the NBA app, NBA.com. So one of the coolest parts of the job is doing research on, other industry leaders that work in the video space or the sports space. So what we'll do is, look at features that they are implementing on their own products and see, how do they apply to basketball. One part of the research that we did was with one of the major streaming providers in the United States and in the world. And what they do is some users will get a certain thumbnail, and a thumbnail is the photo that you see of the video before you actually tap or click on it to watch it. So the way we incorporate this is, if we know that you're a Bulls fan, we might put a Bulls photo as the thumbnail, whereas if we know that you're a Lakers fan, we might put a Lakers photo as the thumbnail for the video, just because we know that you're more likely to click on that if you have an affinity or a personal relationship with that team. So sometimes a still image being used as a thumbnail might not work to get us the type of traffic that we want for a particular video. So what we do now is we use software that uses artificial intelligence or AI to identify the most engaging, most exciting moments in a highlight video and create a GIF or a quick video to use in place of that thumbnail. So imagine you're on a website and you see a video highlight of a fast break dunk, but it gets cut off right before he dunks. You would probably want to click on that to see the end of the play. And how the software identifies that very moment to cut off the video is that we'll take the stats feed to know exactly what's going to happen in that moment. We'll take the pitch of the announcer's voice to identify that something exciting is about to happen, and then also the crowd noise from the arena. So by using this software, we're able to pump out, hundreds and hundreds of videos per night. One of the most important things is we can, manipulate what type of content is in each video. So if a certain, country might be more adept to, a certain type of highlight with a certain type of player, we can adjust that video to meet their needs. Using just human beings and editors to do that would not be possible on a nightly basis. So I would say no matter what you're thinking about what your career might be, that, things change. There's different things that might happen to you that, you might take a different path. I thought I was going to be in law enforcement, and now I'm working in professional sports. I love it. It's a ton of fun, but, you don't have to lock in what your lifelong career is going to be at any point in time. There's always time to change, and there's always time to try something new and go after a new challenge.
Sometimes it can be nerve-wracking or overwhelming to be a broadcaster and think about the millions of people you might be talking to on television or all the people you're looking at right in front of you in an audience, and you can get nervous. One of the things that helps with nervousness for me is preparation. I also happen to be a female working in a very male-dominated space. I know when I'm prepared and I've done my work, I belong anywhere and I own that space. So being prepared for me might be making sure I'm reading all of the different articles on players and coaches and the games, or making sure I'm watching games in preparation for the one that I'm working. I'm constantly doing my homework daily, so I'm never in a position where I'm scrambling to catch up. And that preparation makes me good at my job. It gives me confidence and it takes away any nerves I might have. Our next storyteller knows a lot about being prepared. Her name is Michelle, and she tells stories on one of Chicago's biggest stages.
Are you ready for this?
I grew up on the north side of Chicago in a really huge Filipino family. My mom was the youngest of 9, so I was very close with my 20-plus cousins. We all enjoyed playing basketball growing up in grade school, and my mother's company had tickets here to the United Center right when it opened in 1994. We were sitting in the 200 level, coming to games during the era of our championships here at the Bulls, so it was, they had a huge impact on our upbringing. Growing up, I was actually pretty shy. I wasn't really ever the best speaker, orator. I found other ways to express myself through dance and through music, which were, more physical. And then I ended up going to NYU to study business. Actually, my mother was not going to let me study dance. So I went to business school. I studied marketing and management at NYU, but all the while I continued to dance there, and I learned about the Nick City Dancers. I auditioned for them, but unfortunately didn't make it my freshman year of college, and continued to take dance classes, and I finally made it my senior year of college. I danced for the Knicks for 5 years at Madison Square Garden, and as timing would have it, when our director of entertainment left, I was able to be promoted and work in the front office as a manager of entertainment, and then the director of entertainment. In 2013, I was able to come home to the Bulls and become their director of entertainment. So what my job entails is essentially the fan experience, what happens during a game when the basketball stops. So it's our job to make sure every fan in this building is having a good time, regardless of the score on the court. We're in a situation where we're trying to connect with 20,000 fans in a very short window, 2 minutes and 45 seconds in a timeout. I think you have to be creative in order to fit a concept into 2 minutes and 45 seconds to be able to tell a story and make an impact in such a short amount of time. In this role, we're storytellers. Fans walk into this arena with certain expectations. They'll have matchups of players, which we want to share that story. So when we're sitting at the scorer's table, I help produce. I help set things up based on what we talked about in our production meetings, how we wrote our scripts, and then the director will then cue everybody, the lights, the video, the music, the dancers, everything to happen just the way we rehearsed it. Being over-prepared is critical because there's always going to be some sort of fire drill or some sort of unexpected thing that happens, and what you prepare for gets thrown out. So staying calm is very important. Going crazy when there's a problem is never a good idea. The way you're going to get ahead and advance in your career is to be a part of the solution. You see a problem, you want to solve it. I would attribute my 20 years working in the NBA all to dance, learning choreography, making sure you're cleaning it and drilling it so you're synchronized alongside your teammates, and making sure you're coming together as one unit, communicating, collaborating, helping each other to be better as a team. Apply that approach to how we prepare for games. We don't just throw things out onto the court. We plan it out, we talk about it, we rehearse it, we drill it, we scrap it, start over so that it is perfect once it's presented on court. I don't think I'd be at this point in my career if it weren't for dance. I've been really fortunate to be able to work on the last 4 NBA All-Star Saturday nights, and I've been excited to work with entertainers from all across the NBA. But now it's Chicago's turn, and we're excited for All-Star Weekend to be here in 2020, and we get to showcase what Bulls Entertainment is all about. So I hope you tune in.
My six-word story.
I got
Over 6 words.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, 6 words.
Only 6 words? Has to be 6. Can't be 7.
Inspire and unite fans through legendary entertainment. Oh, that's 7. Not just entertainment. It's got to be legendary.
Telling our story differently. Oh, does it have to be exactly 6? Telling the bull story differently. All right. Differently.
So differently.
Let's do that one more time.
Inspire and unite fans through entertainment.
We tell the bull's story differently.
I play basketball and inspire people.
I celebrate commitment, passion, and the game.
Creatively showcasing the game with photography.
I solve problems using digital products.
Good stories make you feel something. One lasting piece of advice that I would like to give to you from my experience and from my heart is that you should be yourself. I absolutely think that in whatever you're trying to do, there is room for you to be elite and excellent at it exactly as you are. And in fact, it is the things that make you unique that will make your perspective and your touch on that career path special and valuable. All right, guys, that's a wrap for us. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this all-star virtual field trip. We hope you enjoyed meeting all of the NBA storytellers and perhaps that you were inspired to tell your story. I know we can't wait to hear it.